Okay, I want to thank Senators Bennet and Cortez Masto for joining us here today. First, it's nice our Republican friends allowed the cameras to be here today. The decision by Republicans to ban cameras in large parts of this body is absolutely wrong. We Democrats are going to be working to undo it. They're afraid to talk about their health care bill, so they're trying to move cameras away because they're really ashamed of the bill they have. More about that later. Before we discuss health care, I want to take a moment to talk about the Russian sanctions agreement that both parties struck here in the Senate last night. Last night the bill should be a powerful signal to President Trump and the White House that the concern that he might weaken or lift sanctions against Putin is a bipartisan concern, one that the Senate is not going to ignore. With the amendment that both parties crafted last night, Democrats and Republicans are joining together to warn the President he cannot lift sanctions without our approval. I hope it will pass with a strong bipartisan vote. That's what I expect will happen. President Putin behaved recklessly in Crimea. He undermined democracy by interfering in our election. He's shown no signs of changing his ways. His fingerprints are all over the Western Europe elections. And if we do nothing, sure as we're here, he'll turn his attention to the 2018 elections. So confronting Russia must not be a partisan issue. It's an American issue. Both parties in the Senate came together last night, proving that it's still possible to come together and protect our democracy. We urge the House not to water down the amendment and urge the White House not to stand in its way. The House should pass the bill as quickly as possible, send it to the President. We hope he'll sign it. Now on health care, our main issue today. Well, this week, we're in the midst of one of the greatest acts of legislative malpractice Washington has ever seen. Senate Republicans are squirreled away behind closed doors, writing a bill they won't let the public read. Now they've even tried to restrict TV reporters from asking questions in the hallways about the bill. Why are they doing that? It's obvious. They don't want the American people to see how poorly they would do under this bill. They don't want people to see just how well the special interests do under this bill. Today, we're introducing legislation that would require any bill going through the reconciliation process to have hearings and a markup before it gets a vote on the Senate floor. What was that? They're noisy. The No Hearing, No Vote Act would ensure that every American would have a chance to see what's in the bill, to debate it in the open and make their voices heard. Vice President Pence apparently met with our Republican colleagues today, and I'd like to tell you what he said about the Affordable Care Act when it was passed by Democrats. He said, "American people deserve time to read this, and every member of Congress ought to commit to reading the bill." Today, no member of Congress can read the bill because we don't know what it is. When we passed our bill, we had 25 consecutive days and 160 hours of debate on the floor, 110 meetings, markups, negotiations, and hearings between the Help and Finance Committee. We adopted over 150 Republican amendments. 150 Republican amendments are in the ACA. That's what the process should look like. It should be open, it should be fair, and not happen behind closed doors. The Republicans are so ashamed of this bill, they cannot even let a little sunshine light it up. They are ashamed of the bill. If they liked the bill, they'd have brass bands marching down the middle of small-town America saying what a great bill it is, but they know it isn't. They know they're beholden to special interests and tax breaks, even though it greatly hurts the American people. Senator Bennet. Senator Cortez Masto has to go to a markup.
Thank you. Appreciate that. This reckless Republican legislation is going to impact millions of people's lives. It is going to impact whether a woman who beat cancer can afford to go to her annual checkups to make sure she's cancer-free, whether veterans with PTSD can get the mental health treatment they need and deserve, whether parents can afford to get their infant essential care for a life-threatening birth defect. The stories, the people, the list goes on and on. To say Republicans' willingness to put Americans' lives and care at risk is disheartening is an understatement. In my home state of Nevada, we have seen how the Affordable Care Act has benefited the lives of millions of people. Before the ACA was passed, our state had one of the highest rates of uninsured people in the country. 7 years ago, hospitals in our urban and rural areas were struggling to turn a profit. Constant layoffs and budget cuts hurt our economy, and it devastated access to care. After the ACA was passed, our uninsured rate dropped by over 50% in just 2 years. Our hospitals and clinics are thriving. They're expanding, hiring, and able to deliver quality care to all of those who need it. Right now, there are over 1.2 million Nevadans with pre-existing conditions. 1.2 million Nevadans that, if Republicans have their way, would be denied coverage or face exorbitant, unaffordable premiums. This includes over 160,000 children with pre-existing conditions. Last week, I was home. I spoke with a mother of one of these children. She and her husband own a small business in Reno, Nevada. Her son was born prematurely with life-threatening complications. Because of the insurance she had under the ACA, she could afford to keep her son alive. The fact that the legislation that Republicans are trying to ram through the Senate would allow Americans to be penalized for being born with a life-threatening condition, suffering from cancer, battling a mental illness, or just being a woman, it is unconscionable. It goes against the values I was raised with as a Nevadan and as an American. And the people of Nevada recognize this. I have talked to countless Nevadans, and their plea is all the same. Please do not take away my health care. I hear it every time I go home to Nevada. Please don't repeal my ACA. Those are the phone calls I get, the emails I get, the letters that I get from my constituents. I hear from them that my life or the life of someone I love depends on the ACA. It is time to stop the partisan politics. Americans' lives are at stake. I hope that my Republican colleagues will stop hiding behind closed doors and do what is right for the American people. Now, more than ever, we need transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Senator Bennet.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks, Catherine. It's good to be with you today. I was thinking as Catherine was speaking that 7 years ago or so, when we were passing the Affordable Care Act, I was traveling the state of Colorado having a series of town hall meetings. One of the journalists this weekend reminded me in part of Colorado, it wasn't as popular those days to be talking about health care, and there were places where there were a lot of people that were upset, and that's why we were having a conversation about what we were trying to do as we changed our health care system. I've been doing a round of those town halls again over the last 3 weeks, and the first thing I want to say is this. At every single one of those meetings, we had a conversation about the importance of edited content, the importance of a free press to our democracy. That was when I thought we were under threat because the president was attacking journalists for not covering terrorism, when we knew that journalists were losing their lives covering the story in Syria and in ISIS. And the folks in Colorado understand it, and they're under a lot of pressure to be able to determine what is edited content these days and what is just somebody shooting their mouth off on the internet. And I think the job of the press is more important now than it has ever been before. And I just want to join my voice to others who have said what an outrage it is to see our colleagues on the Republican side attempt to ban the press from these halls because of the inconvenience of having to answer questions about the health care bill they refuse to put into public, and that they want to negotiate behind closed doors without the American people seeing it. It sounds as though they may have changed their mind about this.
We're not sure.
But in the 9 years I've been here, from the point of view of how our democracy ought to run, I haven't seen anything as outrageous as this. And And in these meetings, the number one issue that people cared about were not the Comey hearings, were not Russia, was health care. Because they've all read the CBO report about the House bill. They know that 23 million people may lose their insurance because of this. They know, because it was on the front page of the Denver Post, that Colorado could lose up to $700 million in a year because of the Medicaid cuts that are in the bill. And they have a right to know what's in the Senate plan that's being crafted behind closed doors, because their health and their families' well-being is at stake. In 2009, while lamenting the process Democrats used to pass the Affordable Care Act, Speaker Ryan said, quote, "I don't think we should pass bills that we haven't read, that we don't know what they cost." This is the Speaker of the House who just passed the bill in the House of Representatives without the inconvenience of going to the Congressional Budget Office to score the bill. He also said Congress is moving fast to rush through a health care overhaul that lacks a key ingredient: the full participation of you, the American people. That's what Speaker Ryan said when we were passing a bill that had countless, I'm on the Finance Committee and the Health Committee, countless hearings, countless roundtable discussions, 25 days of debate on the Senate floor. That's what Speaker Ryan said. Here's what the Leader McConnell said. Above all, he said, the American people, above all, they are tired of a process that shuts them out. They are tired of giant bills negotiated in secret, then jammed through on a party line vote in the middle of the night. My constituents at home are tired of it because they know this is about their families, this is about their future, this is about their health care. They want to know what's in this bill. They have a right to know what's in this bill. And as far as I'm concerned, they ought to release their discussion draft today so the American people can start debating it. And I think that we have to continue, obviously, to push as a caucus to make sure that we protect our country against the kinds of cuts that were in the House bill and apparently are in the Senate version as well.
Thank you, Michael. Stay here. Well, questions for either of us? Well, before I say anything further on this, I want to hear what Loretta Lynch's side of the story is. I haven't heard that yet.
Leader Schumer, have you had any clarification from the Rules Committee in terms of what they have
Good
in mind for press access? Because I think they told the Senate Sergeant at Arms earlier today that there would be restrictions, and after a meeting with the gallery director said, no, we never said that. So where are we right now?
We're getting all back and forths on this. As you know, they did talk about doing this. They're getting blowback, and I think they haven't made a decision yet. The fact that they'd even consider it shows how much they are afraid of confronting this bill with the American people, plain and simple. Complete transparency for a few hours, a CBO score just before, no hearings, no chance to make amendments. I take total issue with it. Michael said it well when he brought up what other members have said. This is total.
Well, it's what these members said in a different context. I mean, if they applied the standard they suggested we needed the last time, and let me put it this way: if the process we had wasn't enough, countless hearings, countless, 25 days on the floor, and what they're giving is this: the American people. It really is giving the back of their hand to the American people.
They're just ashamed of the bill, and they're totally at odds at what they thought a bill should be like. Senator McConnell in particular, who believes in regular order. We're getting along just fine. But I have to say it, I have never seen such legislative malpractice by any leader as this.
Part of the problem I think they face is that if you were to set out to design a bill less responsive to the critics of Obamacare in the state of Colorado than the House bill, you couldn't do it. Nobody at home is saying that they want a huge tax cut for millionaires as a way of solving their health care problem, for example, or is calling for a cut of a quarter of the Medicaid program. It's exactly the opposite. People are asking for more transparency, more predictability, more affordability, and they've gone in exactly the opposite direction in the House, and I imagine they're going in the exact opposite direction in the Senate, which is why they're unwilling to share their work product with anybody.
Thank you, everybody.